party, we like to party, party, party all night long. Party, party, we like to party, 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 never go home. Party, party, we like to party, party, party all night long. Party, party, we like to party, 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 never go home.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to episode 13 of the Ball Talk Pod. Chris and I are going to react to the biggest story in the NBA since we last potted. Aaron Wiggins dropping 41 on the Sacramento Kings.
Points.
Seventh time a Thunder player has scored 40 plus in a game.
And let me tell you, Ben, it was the most electric time in the past 2 weeks. No, never mind. It was the most electric time someone scored 41 points this season.
That's fair. That's fair. It was, I was not at that game. You were, but the crowd, even on the broadcast, was like, you would have thought it was a playoff game 7 to go to the finals.
It was loud every time that he touched the ball in the fourth quarter. And the funny thing is, the Kings were denying him so hard. I think they even switched in Keaton or Ellis just to try to deny
Stop him
Aaron
from
Wiggins
40.
from getting the ball. Yeah, I was like, that's super funny.
No, I
But,
tweeted out.
It means that it wasn't like fluky.
Well, and Mark said after the game that if we had a full healthy roster, he probably wouldn't have even been in.
Right.
But we were missing so many guys. Dub didn't play. Caruso's out. Queso got hurt in the middle of the game. All three of those guys are questionable for tomorrow's game against the Bucks.
But it was just Aaron Wiggins did so much. He wasn't just like shooting threes. It was a lot of like self-creation. And then he had like 2 plays in a row where he went and did a tip-in off of a miss.
Yeah.
Like really impressive, hard-working type baskets he was making all night. He deserved 41. It was cool to see, all the guys on the bench really celebrate him hard. That was a lot of fun.
Chet was jumping up and down. You'd have thought that dude's hip was fully healed.
On his right side. It seemed like he was purely jumping on his right hip.
Yeah.
Caruso was jumping up and down.
The other big news is we got Chet highlights from practice yesterday.
Those gave me life.
And it's not like shooting on the side, like he's going through drills.
Very, very, very quietly going through drills, but yes.
Yeah, but for someone with a 3-week window still to come back, it's like he could be doing anything right now, and I'd be like, gosh.
Well, you have to imagine that, like, if it was like maybe we had to play him, like we were like 5th or 6th in the standings. You'd have to imagine that his timeline might be accelerated. Actually, I don't know that for sure.
There'd have to be some crazy context in there. The Thunder always are pretty precautionary. But yeah, back to obviously big Chet news. Shea was great last night, 29 points in 3 quarters. Had a huge denial at the rim on Malik Monk.
Yeah, that was cool to see.
But with the trade deadline coming up, I tweeted it during the game. And for those listening, go ahead and follow us at what is it? Ball Talk OK. Ball Talk Podcast OK. I really just need to know that.
Ball Talk Pod OK.
Yeah, that's it. At Ball Talk Pod OK. Tweeted out during the game that Cam Johnson's career high is 38 points, which is the player that everyone seems to be hoping and praying that it's the lottery ticket that the Thunder need to go win a championship. Mr. Aaron Wiggins just now has a career high at 41, so I don't know why we need Cam Johnson when we have Mr. Aaron Wiggins.
If it's all about scoring points, I think Aaron Wiggins has shown he can do that at a very high level.
And I think the craziest thing about all this is you can't deny the gravity that Aaron Wiggins possesses, because he goes out and drops 41 points, and the Dallas Mavericks decide to blow up their entire team.
Their whole team decided that they couldn't do it. They had to make some drastic changes to contend with an Aaron Wiggins-led Thunder.
It's not really the whole team, honestly. It's just the GM. But for those that haven't heard, and I assume most have, the Dallas Mavericks last night, after most of the games except one had been finalized, it was announced by Shams, who's the big ESPN guy, that the Mavs had agreed to trade Luka Doncic, Maxi Kleber, and Markieff Morris to the Los Angeles Lakers for Anthony Davis, Max Christie, and a 2029 first-round pick. Out of nowhere.
Out of nowhere. Luka never requested the trade. LeBron didn't know anything about the trade. AD didn't know anything about the trade. It was done, as they've said many times on Twitter, in the shadows between Rob Pelinka and Nico Harrison, the GMs of their respected teams, the Lakers and the Mavs. Just an absolute wild move at 11:50 on a Saturday night.
Coming off of a finals run.
That's
like,
the most...
I don't get it.
I mean, I've talked to a lot of Mavs fans who are contemplating being done, and a lot of Mavs fans online are saying they're done with the franchise because you traded a guy from a team that just went to the finals, led by said player in Luka Doncic, and you trade him away for an aging Anthony Davis and one first-round pick. It's insane.
And you're getting the first-round pick. The first-round pick that they got is when Luka's like 30. Like smack dab in the middle of his prime. The Lakers will not be that good, that bad at worst that year.
They're good. And at worst, they're going to be like the 4th seed.
Well, what I think is so crazy, and one, Nico Harrison, people have been commending him for what he had done since he took over. He signed an extension last summer. He was the one that orchestrated the trades for PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford last year that really created the roster around Luka that led them to an NBA Finals appearance.
Right.
And in doing that, they traded out first-round picks in the next 3-4 years. And at the time, it's like, no, this makes sense. You have a 25-year-old generational superstar. I mean, as a Thunder fan, I've never been the biggest Luka guy in terms of just liking him. But his talent and what he does on a basketball court, it is undeniable that he is one of the top 5 best players in the league right now. And so it made sense. It was like, no, those first-round picks are going to be in the late first round anyway, so we can trade them. But with this being a Thunder pod, I can't help but think about and mention in those draft pick or in those trades that it actually was the one that led Mavs to get Daniel Gafford. The Thunder came into possession of a pick swap with the Mavs in 2028. And there's a couple others that I think they owe Charlotte one. Like there's some others, but
how old are there how old will their 2 superstars be? I think Anthony Davis will be 36 and Kyrie will be 35 at that time.
It gets flipped, but yeah.
Which is just Anthony Davis feels like is at the tail end of his career, and Kyrie, how long?
Kyrie has a player option next year,
and how long
he can leave?
And how long can he play 40 minutes a night?
And I think looking back at that series, not just against the Thunder, Kyrie was good. We took him out a little bit, but he still was Kyrie. But then as the playoffs kept going, it was like Luka was the engine, and Kyrie kind of faded off. And correct me if I'm wrong, Mavs fans, but that's what I remember. That's what I've seen on Twitter, and I think this is so fascinating as a Thunder fan. I do feel for Mavs fans, and I welcome all of them aboard the Oklahoma City Thunder train.
Choo-choo.
Because, you know, we have some Mavs fans that listen and we're friends with, and they were very blessed in terms of they got a generational talent in Dirk Nowitzki. Drafted him in 98, was there for 20, 22 years, something like that. His career linked up with the beginning of Luka's, and it was like a passing of the torch. This man goes on and gets 5 All-NBA first teams in his first 7 years. And if he's healthy, he's pretty much a lock to get it. I mean, his averages are like 39-9. And in the playoffs, it's even more impressive that they stay like that. But he leads your team to the Western Conference Finals 3 years ago with almost a completely different team that they had last year where they went to the finals. And they're like, you know what? He's fat. So we're gonna actually pivot. He's fat.
The weirdest damage control of all time. Everyone was like talking about how this is the dumbest trade of all time, blah blah blah. And the Mavs just come out with they had real concerns about his diet
Conditioning.
essentially and conditioning for the foreseeable future. And I get Luka Doncic is not the most fit person alive, but he still was leading your team to the finals.
Yeah, who cares if Shaq was fat? He's dominant. I mean, it's not. I understand one that he's 25, so that he is younger right now. But you look at like the big thing that people keep talking about with him going to LA, that might be the best thing for Luka, is that LeBron is the best individual, regardless of sport or profession or anything, in terms of taking care of his body and to have as long of a career as possible. I mean, I think someone said that he spends like $1 million a year
on his recovery.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, stretching, eating, therapy, whatever it is,
massages. Yeah,
and that's why he's dropping a triple-double at Madison Square Garden last night.
And he's
at 40 years old. So if that, here's like, you have that aspect with Luka will then learn under that. Luka's always been enamored with LeBron. There's been a big, like LeBron actually wanted Luka to be the first player out of his, whenever he was drafted, to wear his sneakers, like bring him into the LeBron sneaker company. He chose to go with Jordan instead. And Luka's like even said that, you know, LeBron's kind of his idol, So them playing together is super cool. But if you're Dallas, like I said, they went from Dirk to him. He's 25 years old. He was eligible for the Supermax next year. And you're like, no, injury-prone Kyrie Irving and Anthony Davis is who their conditioning might be a little better.
Yeah, their ability to stay on the court is better than Luka Doncic. When he's
like, I think Mavs fans just keep hoping that by the grace of God, they do these physicals, and Anthony Davis and Luka both fail them, so the trade's rescinded.
Honestly, I don't think even if Luka fails, the Lakers are gonna be like, we don't care.
It is best case scenario for them because, as we mentioned, LeBron being 40 years old, I mean, I think he plays another year or two. I mean, you can't put anything past that man at this point. But the Lakers were kind of screwed after him. I mean, they felt so for having arguably the best player of all time on their team. And we can get into Anthony Davis and his impact, but he's a great player. They felt irrelevant in terms 100%. Of the grand scheme of the NBA. And now you have not just LeBron, you get rid of AD, which is fine. They have no rim protection as is, but they're not doing this for this year. This is the Lakers for the next 10 years will continue to have a top 5 player in the NBA. And not only that, LA is the biggest market in the league, up there like them, New York, Miami, whatever. But then you also throw in that you have arguably the most popular international player. I mean, Jokic and Shea are international, but in terms of like gravity, I don't think it's crazy to say that Luka almost has a bigger following. And then you throw him onto the Lakers, and he's going to get 30 free throws a game.
Yeah. Mark's got to be shaking his fist at the sky.
Yeah. So it makes so much sense for the Lakers. So much sense.
Yeah, let's talk about the Lakers side, like you just did. I think the Lakers made this deal. They were brought this deal by the Mavs GM Nico, and
we didn't even hit on that yet. That's the craziest thing. Dallas offered it.
Dallas offered Luka Doncic, 25-year-old, second best player in the NBA, long career ahead of him. They went ahead and offered it to one team. They offered it to the Lakers. The Lakers apparently had a huddle where they talked about it. Obviously, it was just them saying, yeah, we have to do this. And they said yes. And it's such a good deal for the Lakers, like you just described. And it makes no sense for the Mavs. No sense for the Mavs. I don't understand. If you can explain this to me, Why would they? I know Anthony Davis wants to play the 4, right? But why would you
Mhm.
bring Anthony Davis onto a team with like 2 established rim protectors?
Well, one, something to be mentioned. Derek Lively, who is their young and up and coming center that played great in the playoffs last year, has a bright future. He has an injury that's going to keep him out 2 to 3 months. So pretty much the rest of the regular season. And then, as Thunder fans are well aware, timelines can change, and depending on the severity and the complexity of the rehab, you don't know how he's going to be in the playoffs. Gafford has been playing great. I mean, he's the only guy they have. But Anthony Davis, for the longest time, has said, I want to play the 4, which is the power forward position in basketball. And the Lakers have had him at the 5 the whole time because they don't really have another option to play next to him. So that's what's interesting about the Mavs on this is that they, as you mentioned, already had 2 just gigantic rim protectors that play. I mean, Derek Lively is a great defensive player. Gafford's no slouch. So you're able to play him next to the 5. He can then guard. It's not even about guarding. He's roaming. Like he can play just like as a safety and go get block shots. He can block shots the whole game. And so it's Jalen Williams mentioned this on a podcast, the Young Man of the 3, which is a really good listen. But he mentioned that the defensive player of the year, he thinks they should have a guard position or at least two defensive player of the year awards because big men, they win it 99% of the time because all they do is just look at stats and, that guy led the league in blocks. He's a defensive player of the year.
Right.
But it has nothing to do with, Dub and all these other guys. And I mean, not just on the Thunder, around the league. All these guards are, especially in this NBA, chasing people around the court and contesting threes, guarding down on the post. Like it is everything. And so it'll be interesting to see AD is considered, one of the better defensive players in the league. But is that because of all the stats that he accrues, or is his impact actually to that level? And time will tell, because Nico Harrison, the GM of the Mavs, the first thing he released after they announced the trade was defense wins championships. His team gave up 50 points tonight in the first quarter. The Mavs played tonight. They got blown out by the Cavs.
Just an all-time bad spin zone. He tried to spin zone it so hard.
It was like
terrible.
You're just trying to say something, and none of it's right because there's nothing right. You would have to say that Luka was just announced that he no longer can play basketball, but the Lakers just want him.
Yeah, they want his name.
That'd be the only reason that this trade makes sense.
Right.
For long term. And he said today in his freaking press conference that when he's thinking, one of the reporters asked if how does this impact the future of their franchise? And he was like, he fits our timeline great. AD is right there with Kyrie. And then he kind of stopped and was like, when I'm talking future, I mean the next 3 to 4 years. I'm not thinking 10 years from now. Which might be just a slap in the face to the fans.
Which is what you want in a GM who runs a team where you want to have sustained success and not like a roller coaster for 3 years at a time.
That's why Presti's applauded so much, because although if he wins a championship, there's nothing negative to say about him, because he's developed this situation where not only is this team great now, but the assets that he has with draft picks and young players, the Thunder should be they're in line to be Warrior-esque in terms of the next great dynasty in the NBA. Now, stuff has to go. They're not there yet. They have to prove it. I don't mean that that.
Right. I know. I agree.
And that's why the trade deadline is so frustrating for discussion about trades with the Thunder, because all of these trades that you're talking about, like the Cam Johnson, and if it happens, whatever, we'll look into it and see how we like it. But they're all short-sighted.
Mm-hmm.
And so Cam Johnson's here 1 or 2 years. I get we don't have a championship yet, so you want to do what you have to go get that one and then figure it out from there. And I get that strategy. But I get that strategy in terms of let's go add like a 4th or 5th best player.
Right.
Not let's trade our best player and arguably a top 2 or 3 player in the league for a top 15 to 20 player in the league.
I mean,
like that's not. I don't get it.
It made me so thankful to have Sam Presti because we've traded our best player before, right? We traded Paul George, we traded Russell, but those were all based off circumstances. Like Paul George asked to leave. Luka Doncic did not ask to leave. And had all intentions of re-signing with Dallas and coming back and being there probably for his whole career. But, Paul George asked out, so what did Sam Presti do? He asked around. He shopped him. He didn't just go to one team, and he found the best deal that was a load of picks. We got SGA in that deal, and then
the
that
pick
was
that came J-Dub.
And J-Dub was the pick that that pick, and so then Sam Presti was smart enough to say, hey, we probably need to tank so that we can get a pick, and that
that's also job security. That's the relationship between the owner and the GM. Because Presti and Bennett and the owners, and then now you talk about it, Shea,
and
the best teams have, and Dagnall and Mark, there has to be an alignment between the owners, the GM, the head coach, and your best player in terms of vision for the franchise. And the Thunder are blessed to have that right now. I mean, obviously stuff can change, but it feels like Clay Bennett has been one of the better owners in sports in terms of like hands off. I would say the best owners are the ones that you don't really know about if you're outside of the market. And Presti's been given his flowers. But the alignment, I mean, the Mavs had just sold the majority of their shares to, I can't remember their names, but Mark Cuban's no longer the owner. And I guess, like, you think, like, did the owners just, like, force this? Because Nico had been so good at his job, like I said, with PJ Washington and Gafford and the moves they made last year, and they got Klay Thompson this year. He's been good at his job. And so it's like, what happened? I mean, they said it's been probably 3 or 4 weeks of them chatting behind the scenes in terms of constructing this deal and finally getting it to the finish line. I don't know what happened. Like, Luka's always had some kind of a rift with the team because, like, there's a video of them. They win the Western Conference Finals, and there's a video of Michael Finley, the VP of player ops, walks up and takes the beer out of his hand, doesn't say a word to him, and daps up the guy next to him. Like, it was at the time, it was like, this is odd.
Strange. They just won to go to the finals.
And like that, everyone else was drinking beer. Like, what is the problem?
I don't know.
So there was, like, you never really felt there was that true alignment. And I say that there was 100% a true alignment with the city of Dallas and Luka. And that is why the outrage is happening. There are people outside of their arena holding like a protest. 3 guys brought a coffin and placed it outside as like it's a funeral. I think it's funny that the Mavs played today. Obviously, they got blown out. Not only was AD not there because the trade literally just became official, but Kyrie, Daniel Gafford, and PJ Washington were all out for one reason or another. Their first game at home at the American Airlines Center, it might, I don't even care if it's on national TV. Everyone should tune in, like, find a way to watch it. Because those crowds booze, or I'm like, do you even go?
Yeah, my
like,
thought
what
is
that would send a message more, not showing up.
My thought is that nobody shows up and it's just an empty arena, which would be just hilarious. Because then that would cost the owners a lot of money. They wouldn't, if they kept doing it all season,
tickets,
and they just didn't sell tickets. Just bizarre. And we know that it had to be the new owners because Mark Cuban once said that if he had to choose between his wife and Luka Doncic, he would sign Luka Doncic to a Supermax contract as he was getting divorced from his wife.
As he was signing the papers to divorce his wife. So he's not involved in this per se. I mean, he's still a minority owner, but he doesn't have the say or the pull like he used to. It's just, man, it's going to take a few weeks in seeing how those teams play to really understand the magnitude of how this impacts this year and the Thunder. But in terms of the next decade, the NBA just shifted just
Out west.
astronomically overnight.
California.
And it's still in the freaking Western Conference. Like,
I
why
know.
are there never trades to the East? Like, you have Jimmy Butler, who's not even really that. He's a star. He's a big name. But in terms of impact, he's not there anymore. But he's even trying to get out of the East and come west to like Houston or Golden State, like whatever. No one's moving to the East. The best player that's moved to the East was like Donovan Mitchell, went from the Jazz to the Cavs.
Jalen Brunson.
Yeah, Jalen Brunson went to the Knicks 2 years ago. I mean, the Western Conference is stupid. And honestly, if it works out and the Thunder keep playing like this, I love that it's stupid. It's a much cooler accomplishment. But what I think we need to get into is what we think of this Mavs team now.
Okay.
Because I still consider them one of our biggest obstacles in terms of getting out of the West and making the finals.
Oh, I 100% agree. I think the Lakers got worse
this year, correct?
This year.
But according to their odds, the Lakers now are the 6th best odds to win the championship. The Mavs dropped to 11th.
I think
they're behind the Warriors.
If that's so bad. That's so bad.
Depending on which book you're looking at, obviously, but it's
like I can see the Lakers not being done and maybe going trading for a big to try to like compete this year. You know, they're the 5th seed, so something like that might be a possibility.
But I can see them riding out this year and then making moves after the season to really like build around Luka. But Windhorst came out and said, or Chris Haynes came out and said that LeBron's staying in LA. Like he's not going to ask for a trade now. Because I think he's wanting to play with Luka and Bronny still there.
Yeah, any trade LeBron's in, Bronny's going to have to be a part of.
But I think, as I mentioned, when looking at the Mavs roster as it's currently constructed, the thing that is so interesting is that they basically, in terms of rotation, just swapped AD for Luka. They'll slide everyone up. So they got Max Christie. There's some role players in that, but their starting lineup now, and this is an uneducated opinion or guess, or a lowly educated guess, I guess, on the Mavs. You have Kyrie, you have Clay. Does PJ Washington move to the 3? I think he's way more of a 4. But then you start AD at the 4 and Gafford or Lively at the 5, which are 5 great players.
You're expecting your shots. Kyrie's going to have to shoot 30 times a game. And you're expecting PJ Washington to take a lot more threes.
You're expecting Thunder Killer PJ Washington every night.
Yes.
And one thing that's interesting, I was listening to the No Dunks podcast today. Anthony Davis wants to play the 4. In today's NBA, the 4 is a shooter. I mean, technically right now, Dub is our 4 in our lineup. He can shoot. When Chet comes back, he would be the 4. Even though he's 7 feet tall, he can shoot. Since the bubble in 2020, when the Lakers won the championship, so 4 or 5 years now, Anthony Davis is shooting 26% from 3.
Not going to cut it as a 4.
No, especially on a team with no other viable shooters outside of him and Kyrie, and then PJ kinda and Clay.
But Clay left all his ability to shoot the ball in California.
In Golden State. He's been fine. And PJ's a little inconsistent. Thunder fans always swear that he only comes up for Thunder games. He's been better this year. But that's that lineup is so big, which is something that does combat what the Thunder do. And that's on the defensive side in terms of like, can we get a rebound? Can we all that stuff? But the thing that scared me the most about the Mavs is that Luka and Kyrie each are generational playmakers.
Yeah.
AD is a generational big man, but not in the sense of I can control the game all by myself in terms of get me the ball, generate offense for others around me. he's like, throw it to me in the post or throw it up to me. Like, slow it down, or I'll shoot like, he still shoots jump shots, but not as many threes. And then he's injury prone too. So the question is, how does the size of Dallas now, where they could technically have two of Lively, Gafford, and AD on the court at any given time if they're all healthy, at the 4 and the 5. You throw in PJ Washington too, who's 6'9", can get rebounds, obviously physical. But then you're also like, okay, Kyrie, here's the ball. It's your team. Generate as much as you can. Is that what's going to get you out of the West more so than that team with Luka?
I don't think so, but maybe they see the vision. They see a vision no one else can see. Nico also said that at the end of the games, that AD would play the 5. So he's even imagining, not even before he gets there, he's imagining AD playing the 5 in the most crucial parts of the game, where he would prefer to play the 4. I'm so like, offensively, I can see Kyrie being a really good play. Obviously, he's a really great playmaker, and he can get the ball to Anthony Davis in really good spots, right? But those spots are going to be congested with if Lively and Gafford are on the court, because they can't space the floor. If they're out on the 3-point line, you're never going to have to go out and guard them. They're not spacing big, so it's hard. It's going to be hard for Anthony to have all that space as a 4 against the smaller guy. It just won't make that much sense. And so you end up playing Anthony at the 5, so you can space it out and give him all the space, but he doesn't want to do that, so he might get whatever. And I think for the Thunder specifically, you can play Isaiah Hartenstein at the honestly,
5.
I'd play Isaiah Hartenstein at the 4 against Anthony Davis, and you play Chet at the 5 and let him, roam around like they want Anthony Davis to do, and roam off of Gafford or Lively. And then you have all that ball pressure, and Dub guards PJ Washington, and you have that ball pressure on Kyrie Irving. And now, instead of having to waste Lou Dort and Cason Wallace on 2 guys, Luka and Kyrie, and always having to worry about them playing together, now it's just one
rotate.
guy.
Just rotate. You always have a fresh body.
You have a much fresher body on Kyrie at any given point, especially in the playoffs when it's like tooth and nail every time. But I'm most interested in how they play defense. Like, I know he's a great defensive big, and I know Luka was not a great defensive guard. But if he's playing the 4 and you have Gafford playing the 5,
one of those guys is out on the perimeter guarding a guard.
Right.
Or a quicker big man.
Right. And can they do that for 48 minutes effectively without fouling a ton and without just letting the guy go to the hoop and disrupting the whole defense?
Yeah, well, the thing is, what'll be interesting in terms of rotations is maybe they start the game with AD at the 4 and one of those guys at the 5. How quickly do they resort back to a single big man? Will be interesting to see.
Honestly, I could see the Thunder's small ball lineup working really well.
Yeah.
Dub playing, you could have Dub playing the 5 and Caruso guarding AD.
I don't think it's like it'll go when you don't do it for a full game or a full series, but I definitely think it's something to change the tempo, change the pace, and get people playing Thunder basketball instead of, in that case, the Mavs basketball.
No, I think it'd work well for a short amount of time. But I don't think Dallas is... obviously, they're still a good team. AD's a great player. Kyrie's a great player.
No one knows the fit. We'll have to see how it fits. 2
players playing like that, obviously they're going to be a formidable team, even though Dallas fans probably don't want to hear that. But it's just, I don't think they got any better. I don't think this team's going to go to the finals again now.
They didn't get worse, I don't think, right now. Because Luka's been out a month. He's had a calf strain. The shock in this, and I think what's so hard to overlook, and I saw someone say this, and I sent it to some Mavs buddies, it is not that Luka, like, sure, the conditioning, whatever, like they'll put up with it, but he was theirs. Like, he was like,
Right.
this is our guy. It's how OKC was Shea right now. But you could argue Dallas was to a greater extent because they drafted Luka.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't draft Shea. We
Right.
traded for him.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's almost like it's unfair to Anthony Davis that he's now having to come in and he's the face of this trade in Dallas.
Right.
He is the replacement for Luka, who 90% of every jersey in that arena at any given game is number 77.
Yep.
So I don't know. It's so odd. It's so
The
just
Mavs
out of the blue.
organization lost a lot of fans. Like, I think, plain and simple, they lost a lot of interest from Dallas fans themselves. I've heard like rumors that like this is a ploy to get the team to move to Las Vegas.
Yeah, well, obviously it's, they want to lose the small market that is Dallas
Yeah.
to move to
Mhm.
Las Vegas. But
Sure,
they've
the
already basically said they're expanding the team, they're expanding the league so they get 2 more teams. And it's like, so without being stated in black and white, it's basically has been stated that it's Vegas and Seattle that would get the next 2 expansion teams.
Mhm.
So I
I mean, we
get
go to
that,
the East.
but
I'd love to go to the East.
we're not the most Eastern Western Conference team. It'd be Memphis or New Orleans.
Oh,
So there's that.
there's 2.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll just
well,
realign to East Central
I
and
don't know.
West.
I don't know. I don't get it. And another thing in this, Luka, like you said, didn't ask out. He was eligible for the Supermax extension, which Shea is as well this summer. And for players with a first, like if they made All NBA in the time of their contract, the salary just jumps astronomically. It's like a $346 million contract. Only eligible for those that have been drafted. You have their what they call bird rights, which I'd have to look up the exact definition of why it's called bird rights. But basically, it's saying that you've been with this team for X amount of years, so they can offer more. It was a way in the CBA to get players to stay with the teams that drafted them.
Mm-hmm.
But with this trade, his bird rights reset. So he can't go, he can go sign a max extension, but it can't be a super max, as they call it. So he's losing like over $100 million by going to the Lakers over the next 5 years.
And he's losing more money because he's going to pay California taxes.
Yeah.
Because Texas has no state tax.
Now I think there are ways to get it back. It's not like he loses it. He'll sign like a 2-for-1 deal where it's like 2 years and a player option. And eventually, once he's there long enough, the Lakers would have his rights to be able to offer that supermax. But over the next 5 years, he's going to make $100 million less, not even including taxes, just flat out
Which is
salary.
Cry me a river, but it's a lot of money.
He'll get over it. I don't think that's what he's too worried about right now. But I just don't. It's going to take a while to comprehend this. We're not even to the trade deadline. That is Thursday, February 6th. So who knows what'll happen between now and then. We've had a couple of trades. I think there's been 3 kind of relevant trades. This obviously is the most shocking. But yeah, saying all that, I think the Mavs are still probably the second or third team that I'm most scared of in the West.
Yeah.
They're right there with Denver. I think Denver's still Denver. But throw in Denver, the Mavs, and then Memphis and Houston. They're good. The Thunder play Memphis this Saturday night with hopefully a relatively fully healthy matchup, which will be fascinating to see. We haven't had a healthy matchup yet this year. The Rockets, I don't think, have a superstar that wins you playoff games because it's not like he said defense wins championships. Defense gets you a chance, but generational offensive talent that goes and scores points is what wins championships. And I don't see that with Houston. That's what Luka was to Dallas. It's what he will be to LA. And they still have Kyrie, but it was them having both of them that scared everyone the most. And it honestly, it created a rivalry. That rivalry, I don't know if it's there anymore.
It was
like Dallas would have to it'd have to go to 7 games in the series this year to kind of try to re-spark that.
Mm-hmm. I agree, because a lot of my hate was for Luka, and not because he's like a bad person. I'm not sure about that. He's such a good basketball player, and it was just like so he's able to like break your heart in that way. So you just don't like him.
So I don't know. I texted our buddy Ryan, a Mavs fan, maybe a future Thunder fan, maybe already a Thunder fan.
Ew.
I asked him. Oh, what did I ask him? My mind just went blank. Something about the Mavs. Oh, I asked him, or I told him, I was like, I am bummed that we don't play Dallas again this year. We've played them. We've lost 3 games. Every game was without Luka. I don't know if that was a contributing factor, but I would love to see this matchup and just have some kind of look. I mean, I know the playoffs are different, but if we play Dallas again this year, it's in the playoffs, and we have not seen this version of Dallas. Now, obviously, it's a 7-game series, so you have time to adjust, but I just would want to see it. I honestly, not even against the Thunder, I'm excited just to see how this all works in Dallas.
Yeah, I'm going to be watching more Dallas games. I can tell you what, I'll be watching just for the fans, and to see how the on-court stuff looks.
Yeah, I mean it'll be must-see TV.
Yeah,
with how this is currently constructed. But yeah, Mavs. We'll see how it works out this year in the next 3 to 4. I hope they're bad in 2028. Yeah. And Lakers, they just get luck into generational talent and are handed it to them all the time.
Yeah. One last thing, one of my favorite things as I was scrolling Twitter last night at 1:30 a.m. as all this news was breaking, was the accounts that were talking about teams like the Clippers, for example. A Clipper fan page posted, "This is no longer the worst trade in NBA history," and because they're referencing the Paul George, OKC trade where OKC fleeced the Clippers and got SGA and all that, and then the Hawks fans were talking about how they won the trade when on draft night the Hawks traded Luka Doncic to Dallas, and Dallas traded Trae Young to the Hawks. And it's just funny to see all these fans be like, "Oh, finally, our trade is not the worst trade in NBA histoy."
Yeah, everyone's thinking Dallas.
Yes,
even non-Lakers fans are like thinking Dallas because everyone, fully healthy Dallas team. That team with Luka was good enough to win a championship, not just to get to the finals, but get to the championship.
And I can't believe they did it on Aaron Wiggins' night.
Yeah, it's kind of rude.
Kind of rude.
I think it was reactionary to what we saw at Paycom Center.
Yeah.
But yeah, before we leave, I'll touch on this. It's a pretty big trade in the West, but compared to what we got with the Mavs and Lakers trade, it's not as big. The Spurs are acquiring De'Aaron Fox from the Sacramento Kings for 3 first-round picks. Zach LaVine is being traded from Chicago to San Antonio. And the Bulls are getting
the
Kings. So the Spurs, I mean, there were a lot of moving parts in this one, 3-team deal. The Kings get 3 firsts and Zach LaVine. Spurs get mainly De'Aaron Fox, and then the Bulls, they get out of Zach LaVine's salary. Yeah, they get out of Zach LaVine's contract.
I think the Kings got better. I think you can start building around Fox and Wemby more in San Antonio, so it's a good thing. While it's probably not going to pan out this year, maybe next year you're able to find someone and kind of elevate and get into the playoff race and stay in the playoff race. And I think the Bulls got worse, which is what they needed to do in order.
The Bulls got worse in the best way.
To reset their franchise.
They need to stop being the 9th overall seed.
Yes,
and make the plan and pick 12th every year.
And Zach LaVine, he's good. Like Zach LaVine,
he can score.
Good scorer. He's a high flyer. I think he'll do great on the Kings. And him and DeMar DeRozan are reuniting, so that's cool.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I don't think that fit was great in Chicago. We'll see how it is in Sacramento. But they still have Malik Monk and Domantas Sabonis as well as Keegan Murray in Sacramento. The biggest thing for this is you get an all-star. I mean, Fox is an all-star currently. He's made an all-star team in the past, but you get Wemby, a young-ish, he's 27, in NBA terms, that is starting to get up there in terms of
prime.
Yeah. Wemby's 21, but Fox is good. He's maybe the fastest player in the NBA. He can fill it up. He gets Wemby a younger star compared to like Chris Paul. So I think the Spurs have a chance to make the play-in, depending on how everything folds down there. They're down there with like the Suns and the Warriors trying to get that 9th or 10th seed. It'll be interesting to see how they play. I think, Wemby's already appointment television. Throw in a great talent like this. De'Aaron Fox is going to look good for the next 8 to 10 years because he's the point guard on the team that Victor Wembanyama is on.
Yeah, yes,
so
yes.
Great for him. And I think it was reported that it was his preferred destination. So everybody's happy, I guess. The Kings, they're in that play-in spot. I don't know how much better they'll be. I don't think they got worse, but like we've said before, you don't want to be in the middle in the NBA. So
yeah. I think they got better. I think Zach LaVine is a little better defender, and he can defend different spots. I felt like they have a lot of guys who defend the same spot. With Malik Monk, De'Aaron Fox, Keon Ellis, all those guys kind of defend the same spot. So adding a guy with more size is probably going to be helpful.
Yeah, I mean, and he can score the basketball in spurts. But
it doesn't make any of the teams formidable this year, I don't think.
Everyone keeps saying the West is wide open. And this year I kind of agree. One, the Thunder haven't done it yet. We've won one series. You haven't seen Chet and Harden sign together. The thought is that will work. You don't know yet. And then after that, it's Houston and Memphis. They're young. They haven't done it yet either. Everyone thinks they're like a year or two early. Memphis has been there before in terms of the playoffs, but this iteration of them hasn't quite yet. Denver feels down. The Lakers just made this trade. I don't think it makes them better this year. And then after that, it's kind of a bunch of like middle tier. I mean, I didn't mention Dallas in that, but that's his logic. That is why Dallas made this trade.
Mm-hmm.
Was that it gives us our best chance to win this year. Not saying that is the correct thought process, but that is what his thought process was to make this trade.
Him being Nico Harrison, the GM of the Dallas Mavericks.
Yeah, but we'll see. I mean, the Thunder are back in action tomorrow night against the Milwaukee Bucks. Dub missed the game last night along with Caruso and Queso left. They're all questionable. Rematch of the scrimmage in Vegas. So we'll see how that plays out. And then we're going to be watching around the NBA to see not only how these trades impact the current makeup of teams, but also I'm sure there'll be a few other trades to come before Thursday.
Yeah. Ben, do you think the Thunder are going to do anything special trade-wise?
We might get a podcast in a second one before the trade deadline. I don't think they will. I think if anything, it's like that you're trading Ousmane Dieng and picks for a better pick down the line. It won't be anything massive. I don't see Cam Johnson coming in here. I don't think we're going to trade for Luka Doncic. I don't think something crazy is going to happen.
What a heel turn it would have been had we kept Shea, J-Dub, and for some reason we kept Shea, J-Dub, and Chet, and then
traded for Luka.
Doncic. How crazy would the heel
turn be? At this
turn
point, anything's on the table. Nothing sounds crazy anymore after what we just saw. And that's, the last thing I'll say. It is why the NBA is my favorite league. I love watching NFL. I love baseball. Just the pure chaos that can happen at any given moment in the NBA is unmatched. And these players love drama and they know how to fuel it. Mm-hmm. And it's not just the players, obviously. It's front offices and things like that and the relationships between teams. It is such an entertaining league, even out off the court. And that's what we've gotten over the last couple of days. And I know there's more to come leading up to Thursday.
Well, I will say I just learned that Jimmy Butler and the Warriors, the Heat and the Warriors have stopped talking trade about Jimmy Butler because he told the Warriors he would not sign an extension next summer or whenever he's available.
Honestly, that's a win for the Warriors because I don't know if you want to sign 35-year-old Jimmy Butler to an extension, but
They
Yeah.
talked like they were going to.
I think he probably gets traded. I think he's probably the next like big-ish name that gets traded, but
I mean, he's suspended.
I didn't think it was going to be Luka. He's suspended by the team, not by the NBA.
No, I get it, but it's still like
Nothing makes sense anymore outside of I just want the Thunder to keep playing good basketball.
Yeah, I loved Mark's response. They asked him today if he had seen the Luka trade. He's like, well, yeah, I'm not Twitter. I have access to Twitter, and even if I didn't have Twitter, I would still have heard about it. But he's like, we're just running our own race. It was the perfect Mark answer because he was just like, I'm not going to really touch on that. I was going to say we're running our own race. We'll meet with them, and we meet with the Bucks on Monday night or whatever day that is. Like he didn't know what day it was, and we'll play them, and then they'll go their direction. We'll go our direction, and then
I keep running our race.
Yeah, so Thunder will keep running their race, and hopefully that race ends
in June. That's the hope. But yeah, we'll see. It's a crazy time. We'll be back later this week to kind of wrap up some of the Thunder games this week, some trade talk, and then we'll also be giving you our Super Bowl predictions and thoughts leading into the game on Sunday. But with that being said, appreciate y'all. Crazy time in the NBA, but we'll talk to you later this week. See you.
We like to party.
All night long. Party, party, we like to party, 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 all night long. Party, party, we like to party, 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 never go home. Party, party, we like to party, 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 all